Gregory Shepard, an entrepreneur who's built and sold 12 businesses, a recipient of 4 private equity awards, TEDx speaker, and Forbes author. This is the Boss Podcast with Gregory Shepard.
Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Boss Podcast. Us Gen Xers and Boomers are still going strong as entrepreneurs, but the next generation is coming in hot, making their mark. And now the generational shift continues as Generation Z enters the workforce. So this week, I wanted to talk to a millennial CEO who is handling a staff made up of Generation Z folks during a crisis. His name is Ben Crudo, the CEO of Diff. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've got a fantastic story, and I really want to start from the beginning. How did you know you wanted to be your own boss and start your own company as an entrepreneur? I mean, did it just hit you?
No, I got hit with a pink slip, actually, so that was the impetus.
That happens to some people, right? You're like, if you're your own boss, at least you can only fire yourself. Right.
Exactly. Well, it's a good motivator. I mean, I had kind of grown up around entrepreneurs my whole life. My dad had a clothing business, ran a chain of stores in Canada. And so I guess I wasn't ever, shy to kind of do something on my own, but it wasn't my first instinct. I would say that it was more out of necessity. Working through the retail biz with my dad, I learned a ton about the importance of computers through that process and being really insecure about what I didn't know, but having tons of ideas. I was very forward thinking, and I always knew that I was working harder than my computers were, and that didn't make any sense to me. So through the experiences of hiring consultants, getting all my wacky ideas out, that kind of got me turned on, I suppose, to that path. And I had quit the retail biz so that I could go back to school to become a software engineer, because I was sick and tired of relying on other people's opinions to let me know what's possible and what's not. I kind of wanted to get to the truth myself. So
I get that, man. I totally get that. Yeah.
It was the long road.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're throwing down. I hear you clucking big chicken. So let me ask you this. So we all know about the Silicon Valley. In past episodes, I've talked about San Diego becoming this thrive. Everybody's always talking about Silicon Valley. And so, people are, this is the little Silicon Valley for that. And you're in Montreal. Montreal is, like the Vegas of Canada, right? So tell me about how you became an entrepreneur there and how it is, starting a business in that city and what it's like. Because there's a very specific reason why I wanted you on the show. It has to do with the generation that you deal with. And so let's talk about Montreal and how that connects to the type of employees and the type of staff that you go out there and get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Montreal is it's a very metropolitan town, but we have a ton of universities here, actually, both French speaking, which is the dominant language, and English. And I think the French is probably why we're a little bit less connected to North America than maybe Toronto per se might be. But we've got tons of talent here. I mean, these people are first world. They've, all got iPhones, where we're North American in every way. It's just the language barrier, I think, really makes our talent pool inaccessible. You can probably tell from my English accent that it's my native tongue, though. But I've been able to sort of connect, I think, with a local population that, certainly amongst the English guys at the English universities, which are quite prominent here. And furthermore, within engineering, I think it has this extra layer of English associated with it that is a little less common in other disciplines. So I think it's like pooling all together, right? Where like the young people are interested in computing. English is the language of the internet, and our business is internet focused. So it makes a good sort of connection between that.
I started a company in Santa Cruz, California. And Santa Cruz, California is like stuck in the 60s, right? It's like Hippieville. It's like super Hippieville, USA. It's right on the beach. Everybody wears flip-flops and T-shirts and, shorts, even at work. You get the feeling there's a university there. And I intentionally went over what we call the hill, which is like this little mountain, to set up the office there because it's right next to the Silicon Valley, and everybody wanted to live in Santa Cruz but work in the valley. And the traffic took like 3 hours to get over that mountain and get into the valley. So I was like, well, if I set up there, I can get all these people that want to live here and not drive the hill, and it saved me a lot of money, right? Because of the cost of living in the Silicon Valley is just crazy. Is there some connection that you had like that you were thinking about? I mean, or did this just land, or how did you come about it?
Yeah, I think I kind of got lucky. I mean, I grew up here, but I'm not sure I was necessarily in touch with all of the great reasons why starting a tech company here would work out well. And it turns out there's quite a lot actually of backing that is supporting, I think, a really strong engineering trade here. So, the government's got their headspace right. They're handing out grants to help companies get off the ground and reduce the cost of engineering labor, certainly funneling money towards people that are embarking in ambitious R&D projects as well, which again helps mitigate risk. And of course, I think there's about 4 or 5 substantial universities in Montreal itself that's feeding a tremendous talent pool. So I think the conditions are actually right. And another thing that helps, certainly as it relates to a lot of the French speaking people that may have English as their second language, they're like really intimidated to go down to Santa Cruz, work down in the valley, and get a job in the middle of America. It's quite foreign to them. But I
Yeah,
feel
I
like
would imagine that would be rough,
it's
yeah.
it's tough. They got no connections there. They got no family, and the language is keeping them on the outside. So we're like a stepping stone toward that. We're trying to
Mhm.
bring that valley spirit and that way of running a company and that level of thinking into our local economy.
Man, that's so cool. It's like a little island almost, right?
Yes,
It's
it
like its little
is.
island.
And I feel like the English people here, we're the ambassadors to North America. We're the ones that like have better visibility, and it's our job to bring it in and keep this place vibrant and fresh and relevant.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I felt like when I was in Santa Cruz, I felt similar. I was like, man, it's just all hippies down here and surfers and skaters and stuff like that. And there was no like real business being done. And I was like, if I could set something up down here, and actually it turned out to be really cool. Like I had bikes in the lobby and people are going to the beach at lunch, and it was the same kind of thing as these kids that grew up going to the university. And I don't know, for some reason, some of these smaller towns like Toronto, people get stuck. But you know what the other thing is that I noticed too is that when you're an investor, like I look at deals and constantly invest in companies, and when you're looking at businesses, some of these underserved markets, like I've noticed Toronto is, for Canada, it's like a big, you're finding deals that are priced really high, right? They're expensive to invest in. Valuations are high.
Yeah,
Montreal, though, you have better opportunities for investors because the valuations are lower. And I think that what you said leads to that, which then just presents more opportunity, right?
I
If you
think
start a
so.
business there, right?
But you need a little extra know-how to get into the market and the willingness to recruit people that you're maybe not used to culturally.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit. So I've heard about you when I read an article in Business Insider that was titled, I'm the millennial CEO of mostly a Gen Z team. Your company, Diff, in Montreal. Can you tell me a little bit about this company?
Yeah, so tagging along the tale from before about coming up through the retail biz, I gained the appreciation for software there, and going back to school to get my engineering degree left me kind of wondering what my next move might be. I thought that I'd gonna have to earn my stripes, work in a large company, and take a real traditional path, and I really wanted to do that, and I tried to do that, but unfortunately, it didn't work out well for me. I felt as though there was a serious lack of meaning in the work. I would spend too long working on a bug, get a pat on the back. Knew I didn't really contribute anything, that day, but still, the same pat on the back came whether I achieved something or not. So I felt like a cog, and like I couldn't really, I just didn't have any visceral connection to the work. So I was moonlighting on the side because I've been ambitious and I wanted to increase my compensation. And a friend came over, asked me if I could help him with a e-com site for a local company here. Last guy said paid him 15 grand. He ran away with the money, never got a website. At that time, I was working for 20 bucks an hour. I was like, 15 grand. I'm all over that. I'll work the whole week.
Yeah.
I promise
How
you're
old
going to
were
get a
you at
site.
that point?
28 years old.
Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Through that project where like I hadn't actually put the pieces together yet, that I know a ton about the retail business and probably could like fit in really nicely in the world of e-com. So first project I did for him, I felt the clay being molded in my hands, and I was like, this feels good. Like I know that I'm doing a good job here,
You
and I
found
got a
your
great
place.
result. I found my place. And
Yeah.
it's so silly that it wasn't more obvious to me, but I kept doing that, and I parlayed that success, and that's how Diff started. So one job at a time, building up. And of course, we decided to focus on a particular tech platform called Shopify, which back then was a 40-person company that nobody heard about. Today,
Yeah.
what are they at on the
Monster.
stock market?
Yeah.
$50+ billion valuation. So
Yeah.
I became like the poster boy actually for their partner ecosystem, literally the one-man band, the guy that took his laptop from school, started cranking out code, and now we've got over 100 employees, and we're one of the largest global partners that they rely on to serve their enterprise merchants.
Well, let me say congratulations. From an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur, like, well done, man. I know it is a bitch. It is really hard. I've done it 12 times. And I was part of the eBay divestiture in, Magento and all those 14 companies.
Yeah.
So I know the space really well. And I have a similar story where it's just like, you are just clawing your way through, right?
Yes.
It is, people don't understand how hard it is to be an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And a consultant to bet. People judge us based on our output. And when we send them a bill, they scrutinize every minute of time that we're charging them for. So you got to be really sharp to be able to make an impact and actually get paid.
Yeah. I want to dig into something. So we have a series right now that has to do with this whole COVID nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just taking people out. Businesses are getting just destroyed. And so this article that you wrote really got me interested. I was like, this guy's perfect, right? Not only are you dealing with a group of people that haven't been through anything like this before, that you have to lead them through, but at the same time, you're dealing with a crisis that nobody has ever dealt with. Now, I know that online retail sales are actually up.
Yeah.
Right. Like I know that, I talked to a bunch of companies. They're like, yeah, we're 80% up, we're 50% up, stuff like that, because people are at home bored.
And conversion
and
rates are through the roof.
Conversion rates are incredible. Right. But that still doesn't help with the entire situation that has to do with just the impact of this. Right. You have to take a workforce, put them in their work from home. Your meetings change. This is a fundamental shift, especially for people that are also being shocked because they're young and they're at home alone. A lot of them aren't married yet, right? So I'm anxious to hear from you. How did you handle it? And what were the steps that you took, like immediately? Like day one, you're like, holy shit's coming off the rails. What did you do?
I think the first step was being really proactive about shutting our office down. We didn't wait for the government to tell us that all businesses need to shutter. We recognized right away that we needed to send a message to our people that your welfare comes first, and we're not going to ask you as a company to make sacrifices that don't need to be made at any point in time. So right away, just, signaling to the team, we see this coming and we're putting a plan together to help you out on that.
One of the things I tell people is that to do good business with somebody, you need like, trust, and respect. And so by doing that, you showed them integrity straight away, right? So the first indicator of this, before the rest of the stuff hit, right? The first indicator is, look, I care about you. And to Gen Z, that is more important than money, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. The second thing you did was what?
Right away, we're like I think our business, we're lucky that we could transition to work from home like decently. Like we're used to logging all of our time a lot and doing things. So getting people's homes set up right was the next most important thing. We knew we already had the tools that we needed. We're all hip. We got Slack, we got all our FaceTime, whatever we need there to keep in touch. But we wanted to see what we can do to help make people's lives a little more comfortable at home. So we kind of ransacked the office to grab any supplies and arrange for delivery trucks to get things over to people.
So you walked in the office. How did you socialize this? Because now you're getting into more tactical stuff. So how did you Did you just walk into the room and say, hey, everybody, what? What?
Yeah. So we were actually, I was actually out of town coming back from Miami, And I sent an email to my head of HR. I'm like, you need to clear the office and get everybody out of here. So at the end of the day on the Wednesday, which was at the very beginning of March, we just advised everybody, like, don't come back tomorrow. You leave today, take your stuff with you, and we'll be in touch about a plan of how we're going to deal with this. But for now, take what you need to be self-sufficient and don't worry about coming back. So
Okay,
it
and then
wasn't
you
super
went through
organized at first.
No, I mean, what? I mean, how could it be, right? It's just like,
Exactly.
it's like getting T-boned on a Tuesday afternoon by a semi, it's like, what can you do?
It was
So,
very
so you,
active.
yeah, right. So what were the fundamental moves you made? You told everybody go home, you ransacked the office, got everything, delivered everything what did you do now? How did you get things organized? And this is really important because there are people listening that need this sort of guidance.
Well, it was, the next thing I think that needed to be addressed was the morale of the team. Obviously, with hearing that businesses are closing immediately, everybody was really, really scared. What's going to happen to us and our clients? So we made it our business to create a town hall every week to week and a half so that we could update people on what's happening. And we were extra transparent about the state of our portfolio. So I didn't walk in there and just dish out platitudes and say, hey guys, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. We'll be cool. I was really, really open about the clients that we have, which are having problems, and the steps that we're taking to mitigate these issues and diversify the portfolio and ensure everybody will be able to stay employed. So not blowing sunshine up their asses is a pretty good move.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
These are smart guys.
So you just been honest with them and say, look, this is what's going
Absolutely.
on. These are the clients that are in trouble. Did you find that helped, or did you find that, like, with this generation and this pandemic, did you find that helped them deal with it, or did you find them sort of panicking?
I have to say that's like, I'm not exactly sure, because people who are in their first jobs, who are lacking business experience, don't really know what to make of it. But I just knew that I wasn't going to take the position where they should wonder what the worst case scenario might be. In order to curb their imaginations, I painted it for them directly and gave them concrete steps that we're taking to mitigate that pain and that damage.
So do you feel like you're one of the guys, so to speak, in your business, and that enabled you to socialize this in a way that they could digest the information without scaring the living shit out of them?
I mean, I generally try to be approachable, and I'm pretty close to the generation that I employ. So I am normally, I would say, humbling myself and trying to operate at their level so that we can maintain this, good relationship.
That's awesome. This wraps up part one of my interview with Ben Crudo, the CEO of an e-commerce company called Diff. Coming up in part two, Ben tells us what Diff actually does.
On the surface, it looks like we make websites, but I venture to say we go deeper and we help build businesses.
Thanks for checking out the Boss Podcast with Gregory Shepard. Get more on Greg's business operating support system, Boss, at gregoryshepard.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.